factory?
No, from him being in Synchros, because we bought,
Oh, right, they're spec on a
of-
lot of rocky stuff.
and he never ever showed any signs to me that he knew that much about metallurgy.
That was his first course he took.
I would certainly say that my metallurgical knowledge was dramatically more than his. They had problems that I was able to
Solve.
quite
Yeah.
easily.
So, a bit about you. I'm not going to write anything down here. I just have kind of a series of questions and whatever, and you can just, speak them out. And
Also, my memory isn't perfect.
no, I know they are. Everybody's isn't, right. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take kind of what we say in this recording and put them into writing, and then I'll let you have another look at it before basically anything is published. But a bit about you is when did you open up your first shop, which I believe to be Maple Ridge Cycle, right? Was that the first one? How old were you?
I think it was 1973.
Wow, that's pretty early.
1973.
Yeah. You must have been. How old were you then?
I have to think about that. I guess
Did you have another job before you had that?
26 years.
Oh, you were.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You were 26 years old.
Yeah.
So was this your first foray into business?
Yes. Yeah. I was the head mechanic at CAPS.
Oh, okay.
When I came up to Canada.
Caps in New West, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was only one cap
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Well, he did have Surrey during some of that time, so there was two caps for a while. But the reason I got into Canada, because you had to have so many points for this landed immigrant status thing, was that CAP was offered me a job taking care of his 10 speeds. They had 10 or 12 10-speeds on the floor at that time. That was 1969, and they didn't even know how to shift them. They didn't know.
Right.
They couldn't do anything with them.
That's the owners of Caps.
Yeah.
And so, why did they go into business, or were they into business if they didn't know anything about bikes?
Well, he's been in bikes since the early 30s.
And he was into motorcycles too, no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a Suzuki dealership.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
And the Suzuki dealership did well while I was there.
So
I got a free motorcycle that I got to use for transportation.
Oh yeah, cool.
But at any rate, nobody except for Lauren Atkinson knew about 10 speeds. And I'd been racing for 8 years. I mean, I had raced in Europe for 2 years. So, I mean, it was all completely old hat to me. I even went to Chicago to the Schwinn factory school they used to have.
The mechanic school?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think I'm the only person in Canada that's a graduate of the Schwinn mechanics school. But
did you sell Schwinn balloon bikes?
When I was I'm from the U.S.
Okay, because Schwinn was right into it.
We were a Schwinn dealer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, obviously. Yeah.
So anyway, that came up, and that's how I got enough points to be let into the Canada. I'd never planned on. I worked as a mechanic, as a bicycle mechanic, to pay my way through university, and so I'd been a mechanic for quite a few years, though most of it was part time, and then when I came up here, I just used it as a job to get into Canada. I was planning on just going to SFU, and my whole intention was to be a college prof, and I got a double degree in math and physics, so I was going into cosmology was my interest.
Cosmology? What's that?
That's the theory. That's the people that do the Big Bang stuff and how how the universe
astrophysics
was created.
Theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and at that time, back then, there was only two schools that had programs in it. One was in Australia and one was New York City. And and so you had to have you couldn't even start to study it until you were a graduate student. So there was no
Wow.
such
You
thing
wouldn't
as
accept it,
undergraduate,
yeah.
and then things go the way they go, and I end up meeting a woman who became a world champion one year. She was a accountant, and she talked me into leaving CAPS and starting my own store. So
Oh, it was her that pushed you into business. You said she was a world champion cyclist?
yeah, she won a veteran's title one year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she didn't even know how to ride a bike
When you coached her?
started. Yeah, yeah. Her first race was in Richmond. It was a flat course,
Right.
and I took her down there and I showed her where to start her sprint. And I told her how to watch the riders, and I was Alex Dita's first coach.
Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I only have a coach level 1 certificate, but you're into this sort of thing for a while. And
So you're an avid
Interesting.
racer, mechanic. Even before you opened up your first store, you're totally into bikes,
Yeah.
which were basically 10 speeds at the time, right? Yeah. That's
And so then I opened the store, and it was quite interesting. I was on Lougheed Highway, and on 223rd, between 223rd and 224th, so the downtown core. And
Is that in Maple Ridge?
Maple Ridge.
Okay, right.
We called it Haney then.
Haney, right?
And,
That's right, Haney.
And I had only $1,000, and I had a friend who loaned me $1,000. Guy who was about 80 some years old. We didn't know if he was going to live for me to pay him back, and the bank loaned me $3,000, and so I had $5,000. I started with. I only bought one of everything, and I would go into town every single day, every morning before the store opened, and replenish what I had sold.
Where are you buying them from in town?
Everybody.
Oh, okay.
Dealey at that time,
Okay.
Norco, so all these guys got to know me really well because they saw me every single morning.
What do you know? What date? What year that would be? Do you remember what year you opened your
1973, I'm
store?
pretty
It was
sure.
73. Okay. Okay, you've already said that. Okay.
And then I did 75,000 the first year, one-man operation, and then went to a two-man operation, did 125,000 the second year, and then 225 the third year.
Wow.
And third year I had to move into a bigger place. I went on to do Nitron. So anyway, then I went into I think the mail I started importing. Like I was the
Like when you're selling bikes back then, mostly 10 speeds, right?
yeah.
And
Lots of kids bikes and
Kids
BMX.
bikes, yeah. But
and,
Norco was your biggest profit margin, I'm sure.
Dealey was.
Dealey was,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, Dealey and Narco.
Because you don't make much on the imports. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, but people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So there's big. Lots of
Because
people were
because I was
throwing
buying
money
right from
around.
the factories. Like I sold Moa clothing from Italy. I sold Detro Pietro shoes from Italy. I had rims, 3 brands of rims
They were expensive back
from
then.
France.
But people wanted them. They were expensive,
Yeah.
but people wanted them.
All these customers were people from Vancouver that would come out.
Racers and people that were really into
Yeah.
bikes, right?
But I was the only person that bringing it in.
Yeah, okay.
I brought in a carload of a container of bikes from Motorbicon in France. That was a really
Okay.
that was a big purchase for me. I was a little tiny bicycle store,
Right.
And I was buying 310 speeds in one load. The bank in Maple Ridge, I was doing with CIBC. They didn't even know how to do letter of credits.
Yeah.
Like we were all learning all this stuff
Yeah.
together.
To import stuff. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
interesting.
and but I got into importing, and I would be going. I did all my brokerage myself, and I would get into going to customs probably 3 times a week, picking things up, and I brought things in from the Orient. I brought things in from Europe and from the U.S. A lot from the U.S. and and because I was the only person having a lot of this stuff, like I brought Campy in directly from the biggest wholesaler in the U.S. and
Who was that at the time?
there's two different people. One of them was a Texas company, and one was Specialized.
Oh, okay.
So they changed positions. But yeah, and so then I went to the mail order business, and I was the first Canadian bicycle mail order business. I had helped I had 10,000 people on our mailing list. We were the first bicycle store in Canada to be computerized. And
Was BRC around then too?
yeah.
So they were.
I bought out BRC's Campy. They used to sell Campy.
Oh, okay.
And I
Because they
bought
kind
all this stuff.
of they were around and then they just went away, sort of, right? But
Yeah,
they were all mail order too, basically. They were brothers, right?
Well, they did regular wholesale to motorcycle shops and to bicycle shops.
Okay, yeah, they were into motorcycles too. Yeah, well, I remember that. Okay. Interesting.
But
So those are the heydays for 10 speeds, eh? Even before mountain biking,
yeah,
that store was very successful, just selling everything, right? Bikes.
one of the things I always was so proud of was I was the first person to bring Bell helmets in, and I had to buy 100 at a time, which was a lot of a weirdo helmet because nobody was wearing hard shell helmets.
Nobody was wearing helmets, period.
And or helmets, period.
Yeah.
Well, we had to wear the leather things
The
for
hairnets,
racing.
yeah.
But eventually Norco wanted to buy Bell helmets, and so Bell made Norco come to me, and they had to have my permission to bring in Bell helmets.
Really?
Yeah, and so
They still didn't sell it, did they? No. Norco doesn't own Bell. They distribute Bell.
and
That's quite a company in itself.
well, you know, something that's really interesting in the bicycle world is a fellow that's I used to work with, or he used to work for me when I was. I led Raceface for a couple of years. He now owns Bell Sports. He bought
Yeah, it's quite a story behind
Raceface, and now just this spring, or this beginning of this year, he bought out Bell Sports.
Oh, Raceface bought out Bell. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, Chris did, the
Oh,
fellow
okay.
that had bought Raceface.
Oh, interesting.
It's a
Wow.
single person. He was 17, 18 years old when I first started working with him at Rocky.
Didn't I thought that Raceface, they came on to hard times and then they were resurrected.
They went out of business.
They went out of business.
Yep, and he bought them out. I guess that his family must have had some money because he was
okay.
just a young kid when I knew him. We were quite good friends, and we'd go to the shows. We'd always party afterwards. And
So he took the brand and just revived it. Because their stuff now is like, you can tell they've done a good job
and
putting the stuff out people need, right?
And so now he has these giant. That's road gear.
I know, Bell's huge. So he bought Bell. Wow.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it.
Wow.
Yeah, really something.
Well, that's probably the family that's saying, okay, you've done good with that company, well, let's go for a bigger one.
Yeah.
Right? Well, good for him. Good for him. We need guys like that, right? So, yeah, but I'd like to get more to dates. And so let's get into the mountain bike years at Maple Ridge Cycle. It was still called that when you moved, right? You moved from Lougheed Highway to a bigger place, right?
Yeah, well, it was first called Larry's Cycle Shop, and then it was called Larry and Gay's Cycle Shop. Because
Larry and who?
Gay.
Gay, that was your partner.
Gay's the woman who taught me.
That was your wife?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
okay.
we never got married, but we lived together.
Okay.
She came in as a partner the third year.
Okay.
When I moved to the bigger place, and then when we opened up the mail order business, we did it as a separate company, so we had two companies, and so sometimes we called ourselves Canadian Bicycle Specialists, which was what we also called our bicycle frames, CBS.
Oh, okay.
And
CBS, I know what that means.
And then
what was the nickname for CBS? There was a nickname for it, wasn't it? Oh no, it was a nickname for BRC. Okay, sorry to sidetrack it. So you had different names for the mail order business. So when you started the mail order business, this is still pre-mountain biking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it was still pre, and matter of fact, we didn't do any mountain biking stuff with the mail order business. And matter of fact, we never made any mountain bike frames. We did tandems. We did.
So, but that bit of bike making that you did, you that was at a different location. You're doing it at the back of your store.
No, we had 6,400 square foot store then.
So when you opened your new store, you actually had a little bike frame making place in the back.
You know, we had 2 floors, and the top floor was the office, lunchroom, and mail order business.
Okay.
And then the frame shop.
You had a frame shop there too. And so you manufactured what kind of bikes? Like road bikes?
We
bikes.
did more racing than any other sort of thing, road racing, but we were very close with touring bikes. We were the only place that was doing specific brand newer bikes. I was the person that sponsored or put together the 4 guys from BC that did the Paris Press Paris the first time.
Randonneers, the Randonneer guys.
Randonneers.
Yeah.
And we had a track bike in the one of our track bikes frames in the Korean Olympics.
Oh,
And,
okay. Wow.
We won all kinds of wheelchair races. Like at one time, we had 4 or 5 records were held by CBS wheelchairs. London, just all around the world, and so
yeah, I
So
mean,
we did
yeah,
okay.
the CBS wheelchair. I mean, so your frame building shop upstairs at your bike store also made wheelchairs.
no, didn't go into the wheelchairs until the bicycle store went out of business. Like the bike store went bankrupt in
Oh, okay.
1982, I think,
82.
81 or 82.
And you attribute that to just...
Oh, it was a million things. We were paying 22% interest on our loans because that was that real high time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The telephone company, the operators went on strike at BCTEL,
for your noise, that kills the
and
noise.
so nobody could get my new phone number because I moved and I had a new phone number. And I was a mail order business, and the letters carriers went on strike that summer, and so nobody could make contact. We didn't have other ways to communicate, and so I had too much debt because I kept expanding. I put $80,000 into the frame building operation, just making the jig and the stuff you buy,
Yeah.
the inventory you carry, and so I was destined to not make it. And so then when we closed down the store, Gay and her then husband Tony bought the frame shop from the people we owed money to, which was for nothing, and they moved it onto Main Street in Vancouver, and that's where the wheelchairs were made.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So not at the bicycle store.
So they had this frame building business, and they were trying to build frames, and obviously they wanted to increase their business, so they decided to...
Yeah, they did the frame building for maybe 8 years or something.
Interesting. So who was designing those frames for them? And
I was designing all of them until Tony came in, and then Tony, who was an ex-professional racer in England,
okay.
Had friends in England that gave him.
So 82 is the year from hell, eh? It just, things went right to hell.
Yeah, I
eh?
moved to Victoria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
So before, like after 82, I'd like to go back a bit and just ask you a couple of questions about I know that there's documentation on the museum and the Mountain Bike Hall of Fame that is has something on their website about you receiving one of the first Richies, and that was through your touring friend, right? Who was a touring buddy, and he was down there in Fairfax.
Yep.
So he was the first Canadian probably to connect with a Ritchie to say, hey,
Yep.
yeah,
That's
look at
right.
that bike, let's bring it back. So he brought it back, gave one to you.
Oh well, we paid for it, but yeah.
Yeah, oh, okay, he sold one to you. And that was out of the first three they said. And then you said after, you said that something about that sat on the floor, or did it sell right away, that one that you bought? Do you remember? Like it went onto your floor and...
I can't remember how fast we sold it. We bought 5 right away.
So after you got that one, you made another order for 5.
5, yeah, and we just bought them directly from Tom.
From Tom. So he sent them up, and
Yeah.
I remember you telling me something that they were there, and I guess people didn't even know what to think of them because they'd never seen them before.
Oh yeah, it was a completely strange
Bike
new,
that was
new
on your floor.
thing. Yeah.
Nobody knew what it was.
Yep. So
So
But-
it wasn't gangbusters. So and those took a month or so to sell.
oh yeah, it certainly took a month. I'm sure it took longer than that.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we were selling for $3,000.
Yeah, no, I know. That's unheard of too back then. Plus, you could get like a high stand road bike was what, 2,000, right?
Yep. All top of the line, can't be. Yeah.
So that was like around 81, 82.
Yep. 81, 82.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then so after that 5, then people started, 82 is when your business kind of collapsed.
Yep.
So really, you didn't sell like that many. You sold a small batch of them, and that was just the beginning of the flood of Ritchies that I guess Grayson took over and sold through Rocky and whoever else, because I think
Yep.
that he had an exclusive deal with Tom.
He had just exclusive deal, and actually, what happened is Tom ended up having financial trouble near that time.
Yeah.
And Grayson rescued him. Grayson gave him enough money to stay in business. He didn't do it as going into business; just made money available to him. Plus,
Yeah, it said, "Give me bikes whenever you can."
He
Yeah.
sold a bunch of the Ritchie product up here, and so Ritchie was small, but an important part of Rocky's business
Oh yeah.
for a few years. It was a good. It was a good thing to be.
Because that was
Having-
82. That was right around the split. He split from Kelly and Fisher right in 82, 83. So that's probably when he had that difficulty because he was probably trying to expand his shop and trying to buy equipment and stuff.
And then they were also dealing with Mike Sinyard at that time because Mike took one of Gary's bikes and
Just basically copied
it.
Yeah.
And I was the first person to buy a carload of those, a container of those here in Canada.
You bought a container of
'cause
Specialized
I moved.
stump jumpers.
Yeah, because I moved to a Russ Hay bike shop.
Oh, in Victoria. That's
Yeah.
where you went to. Okay.
And we bought the first.
That must have been profitable,
Container.
eh?
We sold maybe half of them to other bike stores to help
Yeah.
finance the whole thing.
Is that right?
Because it was an expensive purchase.
undertaking.
But yeah, we did
Good
quite
for
well.
you, but that's what you got to do in business, right? You got to say, well, containers, this amount of money, right? So yeah, but it strikes me though that around that time too, like we've talked to you and you said that you have some videos of Tom welding in Japan.
I'm sorry I haven't found them yet.
No, it's no big deal, but it's just I'm sure they'll turn up, right? But I'm kind of trying to put timelines here that. So did you film these or were they?
No, Tom had them filmed because Tom was in them, so he was obviously not. He may have done some of the filming himself. Tom might have.
They were done on a camcorder with VHS camcorder.
Yeah.
How did you wind up with these copies?
Well, we were learning. I was brought into Rocky to make Rocky a mass producer of frames in Canada. Up to that stage, everything Rocky was doing basically was being imported. The Japanese were making frames and they were putting them together. Bill Bailey, he would build. I don't think he built more than 50 or 70 frames a year.
You're talking about Derek Barrowby?
Derek, yeah. So that wasn't,
And
that you don't make business on
No.
that. And I mean, I was doing that much with my frame shop, and So, so yeah.
You
So
wanted to import them.
my job was to take a couple of guys that knew how to weld and to somehow start creating mass production. Like when I left, we were doing 2,000 frames at Rocky, and when I started, we were doing 100 a year. So I also had a learning curve, and Tom sent those videos up to us to help with the learning process. Like it was, like he was teaching the people at Toyo, who still make all the Ritchie frames.
Yeah.
And they make all the Surly frames too. How to braze, how to put the stuff on the frames, and it was quite neat.
So,
It was a
Tom
real
made
big.
those, and then he made copies, and then gave you a copy. He gave Rocky a copy.
Yeah, we got a copy. We had a copy.
So he probably still has a copy in his archive somewhere, doesn't he?
From looking at it, it looks like these are the only ones, but I don't know about that.
Are they VHS or are the actual?
VHS.
So they're the big ones, yeah. So, but I'm wondering, did they actually go in the camcorders? They weren't that big, the camcorders that we was recording them with. So that would have been. Anyway, I don't know enough about VHS.
Yeah, that's a question that would have to be asked to Tom.
But in that time, so Rocky was just starting then. So Rocky was formed in 1981. So Grayson said, instead of importing all these Japanese frames built up, why don't we?
Yeah, 1989 was when Grayson decided to get that going. I mean, he probably thought about it before then, but 89 was when
Rocky started to really produce the TIG welded.
Yeah, the Altitude was our first mass-produced bike.
I thought the Sherpa was.
Well, we didn't make the Sherpa frame.
Oh, the Sherpa, it was loved in the Toyo factory and brought in full. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bigger job taking the tubes and.
Yeah, no, I know, and a lot of profit there too. As far as you thought that you guys could do a better job at Rocky painting and putting them together. Is that why you wanted to take that over?
Yeah, we could do a better job, and also we wanted to have the Canadian content. We wanted to be Canadian made.
Canadian made in Canada.
We're from Rocky or Rocky Mountain.
Right. So now, how did you? So you went from your shop in '82, bad year, and then you decided to get out of town. You went to Russ Hay in Victoria, and you were with Russ Hay a while before Rocky. Did they source you out, or did you approach them? How did that relationship start between you and
Fred Dealey did that. I was fairly famous at that time. Bicycling magazine at that point was sort of the only real bicycling magazine.
Yeah.
They asked me to be their technical editor. I was asked to be the team mechanic for the Canadian national team. I was just sort of a known character, and so when I stopped working at my store, then there was a whole bunch of people that were interested in having me. So I thought, I was newly married. My wife came over from Halifax, and we thought Victoria sounded like a nice place to live. So
But you weren't there very long before you came back, right, to work at the Rocky factory?
6 years. Yeah, 6 years.
So
82 to 88.
Rocky Mountain started importing in behind the Peddler in that little place, the Peddler, right? But their factory didn't get going until like later, right? Like 89 or something, right?
Well, they had the frame building shop with Derek.
And where was that?
From the early 70s. It was in Richmond. And it was, I have a picture, a really nice photograph of the original group at the frame shop in Richmond.
Was it near Brody?
Long before I started.
Up?
Yeah.
It's right in that area by the River Rock Casino. Okay. Yeah, I vaguely remember that, them being out there. And then, so what year?
And they did do some frames. Like the Tantalus was handmade
by Derek.
Here,
all the nice Philip Braid stuff.
So the wedge that was made here. And
who else welded there at that shop? It was just a tiny little place, right?
The only other person, Paul did for a little bit, We got what's his name going? What's his name? How can I say that? The fellow that's down in Richmond now, Christopher.
Oh, Christopher, yeah.
Like we sent him to Toyo Factory. Rocky
Yeah.
paid for him to go there and learn to weld, and he was our employee
Yeah,
at
no,
that
he
time.
turned out really good too, that guy.
And when I visited Toyo Factory, there were guys there that still remembered Chris and remembered him fondly.
They're very similar in their own ways, Krista Kerf and Paul Brody. They're very meticulous people, and you need that in a frame builder, right? It's all about finishing, right?
Well, Chris is Dutch, and Jacob is Dutch, and they're real serious business people.
Yeah.
And they are very successful business people.
Yeah.
They own an awful lot of European businesses. The Dutch do. You know, big
money, yeah.
names like Philips. I think is the biggest company in Europe,
Yeah.
and that's Dutch owned.
Yeah.
Like they're successful.
If you can plant tulips and grow tulips, you can do anything.
And they built their land.
I know.
I mean, they
off the dikes, yeah. They
Yeah.
reclaimed it and made, yeah, it's great.
No, I take those people seriously.
Yeah. So okay, so the Rocky, there was a little Rocky factory in Richmond, and what year did you say that would start it up in? That would have been, that's before your time. So
yep, it's before my time, but it was around 82, 83.
Okay, where did
It
your?
was when Derek Bailey. It's when they hired Derek Bailey.
Okay, so some of the frame building stuff that you had in your shop that was bought and basically into CBS.
Yeah.
None of that wound up at the Rocky factory.
No.
That was all just whatever.
Yeah,
it went.
that all just.
Okay. So there was Derek Bailey was welding at that little tiny place out in Richmond up till '89, and then when you came into the picture from Victoria, maybe tell me a little bit about how you started talking. Was it Grayson that
Yeah.
said, "Hey, come on, let's do
Yeah, because
something"?
Grayson and Jacob were long parted.
They were long departed already.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and although it's very emotional, the party. Like Grayson wouldn't talk about Jacob, and Grayson never ever in my presence
Spoke
said
badly about anybody.
anything negative
Yeah.
about Jacob. But you could tell that he wasn't going to say anything.
Same with
flowery
Pip, and
about
I asked him,
either.
man. He said there's so much going on there, man, that everybody too. I mean, mountain biking has got this real. I mean, look at the Cove. Why they were so successful. It was all this being cool. You know what I mean? It was the thing. A mountain bike is cool, man. You got to be a surfer, right? But I mean, Deep Cove, man. There was stuff already happening. They had Deep Cove days in the '70s.
Yeah.
And they had all the cruiser guys down there. So it was a natural thing for them to start up a shop.
Such a wonderful
there.
location.
Yeah, a great location. But those guys, business-wise, I mean,
They didn't have to be businessmen. Yeah.
they were ski bums. Yeah, for sure. So anyway, okay. So you entered discussions with Grayson, and he said, "Yeah, let's make a big factory and make thousands of
Well,
bikes."
he came to me and asked me.
Did he?
to do it,
Okay.
yeah, so.
So in Victoria, or were you?
No, I was in Vancouver.
Okay, you'd moved back already.
La Bicicletta, at that time,
Giuseppe.
Giuseppe wanted to open a store in Toronto, and he did open it.
Yeah.
And he asked me to run the store in Vancouver, and while I was at Russ Hay, and he offered me $5,000 a month, which was an awful lot of money in the bicycle retail world at that
Oh
time.
yeah, totally.
And so I took it. So we moved to Vancouver. My wife still talks about how I pulled us up and took us away
To work
from
for
Victoria.
Giuseppe.
Yeah, and that only lasted for about 3 months.
Did you know Giuseppe before that?
No, never.
I would imagine.